Hello everyone, I'm Greg White with Droneapreneur, and I'm so excited to be here today because we've got a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about remote ID, and we've got an interview today with Brendan Schulman, who's Vice President of Policy and Legal Affairs for DJI, and he's here to talk about remote ID, some of his viewpoints on remote ID, and what it really means to all of us. And as drone operators and drone entrepreneurs, this is a very important subject. And we really need to get out there and comment as soon as possible on the remote ID notice for proposed rulemaking, NPRM. So Brendan is here today, and this is going to be great to talk to him and get their viewpoints. So today, Brendan Schulman, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure, happy to do that, and thanks for having me on the show. So I've been at DJI almost 5 years. Prior to that, I was a lawyer in private practice, sort of known for my drone advocacy cases in the sort of early years of drone or UAS regulation. But for the past 5 years at DJI, I've really been an advocate for reasonable government policy, whether at the federal, state, or local level, to make sure that people can get the most out of drones and that the rules address legitimate concerns or risks without going overboard and without burdening the users of drone technology too much. And that's really been the mission, not just in the United States for me, but also worldwide. My team does that type of work in Europe and Asia Pacific, Australia, Japan, India. We've done a lot of work in Canada as well.
Right. Okay, well, tell us a little bit about remote ID, and tell us a little bit about this proposed rule and why this NPRM that's out there is important for us to take action on. Give us a little overview on that, and then maybe we can dive in a little more in just a second.
Yeah, maybe we should start with what is it all about, where did it come from? I think that's important context.
Mm-hmm.
If you have been in my world for the past few years, you wouldn't know. In 2016, Congress and national security agencies started to become concerned that drones were flying in a lot of different places, potentially causing security concerns and maybe risks, and there was no way to identify who was flying them from the ground. And so Congress asked the FAA to look into what was then called remote identification, figure out a way not just to put your registration sticker on the drone, but to enable that kind of information to be broadcast or otherwise sent to the ground so that law enforcement and security agencies could figure out, almost like a car license plate, who's flying the drone. And that's honestly a very reasonable goal, and I supported it as soon as I heard about it. We then, I would say, got a little bit more serious about it in 2017 in a couple ways. Number one, the FAA proposed rule for flight over people, which was expected to be released as a proposal in early 2017, was held up because of the lack of remote ID. The security agencies in Washington basically said, well, we can't let drones fly over crowds if we don't know who's flying. We won't know who's authorized and whether it's a threat or a legitimate operation. Second thing in 2017 that happened is the FAA convened a what's called an Aviation Rulemaking Committee, an ARC. I was on that along with 73 other organizations. And we prepared over the summer, we prepared a report of recommendations for the FAA on how to achieve remote ID consistent with the goals that we were hearing at the time, which was mostly about security, but also accountability and also, I would say, public comfort with drones that are flying, because people know that you can figure out who's, or at least the police can figure out who's flying the drone.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety might diminish, and people will be more comfortable with technology, which is something we should all want.
Right.
We worked in 2017. The report went to the FAA, and we've been waiting since late 2017 for this moment, which is the FAA's actual official proposal for remote ID. The FAA, like other agencies, is required to have a public comment period in which members of the public can comment on the proposal and make suggestions, indicate support, indicate opposition for different things, those alternatives. It actually does work. Back when Part 107 was an FAA proposal, the original proposal, for example, said the maximum altitude would be 400 feet above ground level. people wrote in and said, my job involves inspecting transmission towers
Right.
that are 500 feet
Right.
above 400, and FAA agreed and said, sure, the final rule is 400 feet above a structure when you're within 400 feet of the top. So that's an improvement, just a very simple example of how public comment does make a difference. It's worth getting involved. And we have now just a few weeks left before March 2nd. And I'm sure you want to get into kind of like what to think about in your comment, but I just wanted to kind of get that background out there. I think
no, that's really good. I think it's important to know where we're coming from, and also I think it's that's really enlightening to know that us making a comment can make a change in a proposed rule, right? And so let's talk about that. What does everybody do, and what's the best way to make a comment? I mean, I know there's some good things to do and maybe some not so good things to do and I've seen different things on the internet. So let's talk about actually getting out and making a comment on that NPRM.
Definitely. I think it's very important to try to make it personal.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to the FAA, how would this proposal impact you? Everyone has a slightly different thing to do with drones. There's no real such thing as a cut and paste comment. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing. You only have 5 minutes and don't want to do anything else. Fine, go and find something that matches your interests and submit it anyway. But really, the most impactful thing you can do is explain to the FAA who you are, what you do with drones, or what you want to do with drones. How will various parts of the proposal affect you, presumably negatively?
Mm-hmm.
That could be cost, that could be equipment that will no longer be usable. It could be limitations of where you can fly it. It could be concern about the ways in which you have to do remote ID. For example, there's 2 methods, broadcast and network, and there are proponents of each. And that ARC report from 2017 said, do it either way. Here the FAA has said, do it both ways. So one could raise a concern about having to do something 2 different ways, as well as the costs of for example, the network approach, which we believe, and actually the FAA says involves monthly subscription costs. So you could raise a concern about that if that's a concern for you. If you're a recreational user, they're changing the registration process from $5 per person to $5 per aircraft. You have a lot of drones or model airplanes, that could be a concern for you. Again, that's the recreational category.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on who you are, because if you're only commercial, you're probably not going to care about the change to the recreational registration. So it really makes sense to explain who you are, explain how it impacts you, get out there in the community and look for other guidance and advice. I've seen a lot of good advice. We just put out on our Viewpoints blog, we just put out a sort of tips for filing an effective comment, and in there we've linked to a couple other resources we've seen where there are thoughtful comments that we think apply to a lot of operators out there. So those are from the Alliance for Drone Innovation,
mm-hmm.
It's the Pilot Institute. But again, if you go to our DJI Viewpoints blog, I think it was posted yesterday, you'll see the tips and suggestions for how to make an effective comment. And that's basically what I'm saying right now, which is make it personal,
mm-hmm.
specific, respond to places in the proposal where the FAA says, here's what we're really looking for feedback from you, because that tends to suggest they're not sure what they want to do. And of course, it's a long document. It's over 300 pages, so very important, I think, to try to find your community out there. That's why I came on your show to kind of
yes.
a little bit, guide people, because it's not easy to just pick up the document and read it. It's pretty dense, pretty complicated, but I've seen a lot of good resources out there for distilling it into what really is going to matter, various different operators, and then also suggestions for the kinds of points to include in your comment. But again, making it personal and individual to you is the most important thing. So the FAA treats it as its own separate comment, rather than saying, "Wow, we got 1,000 submissions that all say the same thing. We're just going to respond once."
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's interesting what you brought up about the ARC, and that you were part of the ARC committee, and that you proposed or recommended either broadcast or internet. But and that's interesting that now the proposed rule has both. So talk about that's kind of for me one of the big ones. So broadcast versus internet. and then I think about legacy drones and how that's going to affect us, moving forward with our equipment. So I guess talk a little bit about maybe your viewpoint on broadcast and internet. And, because I know if we're flying a Matrice, we've got broadcast today, right? So talk a little bit about how that might be something we could use in our comment section in our opinion about broadcast.
Yeah, happy to do that. I think it's probably the biggest or maybe the clearest issue for most people out there is how am I going to have to do remote ID? What do I actually have to do? So even if you support remote ID as we do and believe it's important, there's a lot of questions about how to get it done. It's not trivial to get information from the drone to people who need it.
Mm-hmm.
The two main ways of doing that are broadcast, sort of like sending a radio signal out from the drone, similar to like a ADSB beacon or a radio station, and that can be received by anyone in the area with a receiver, which we anticipate will be a commonly carried cell phone using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So imagine a Wi-Fi broadcast that says, here's my serial number, versus doing it through the internet and a network ID, a remote ID service, which would also work and has its own advantages. For example, once the information is on the internet, you could access it from anywhere, right? You could be sitting on the moon and watch the drone traffic in Atlanta. And okay, that's kind of cool, and you can't really do that with broadcast. So there's certainly trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Not the way it works. We know that because the ASTM has created a standard for doing it both ways. And the question is, well, what should we have to do? And I think we've been saying for a long time, if you go back to early 2017, when this topic first came up in policy discussions, that the simplest, easiest, cheapest way to do it is just to create a broadcast locally. Because you're effectively solving what is the absence of a license plate. And license plates are local, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see the license plate, and if it's miles and miles away, you don't. So to me and to DJI, that's always been the simplest way to do it. It's worry-free. Honestly, you have had Aeroscope remote ID on DJI drones for over 2 years. No one has had to pay to have that. It has solved problems. We provided the receivers to that solution to national security agencies, prisons, stadiums, airports, and they found it very useful. I wish I could share with you some of the stories they tell me, but I can't. It works, and the best part about it is it's totally unobtrusive to you. And that we think that's not the case for a network solution. A network solution, although it has, like I said, range advantages and other aspects, maybe it can tie into other services, maybe it can offer different views of the data in different ways. Great, but it's going to be a more complex system because you need all that back-end infrastructure. First of all, you need to be connected to the cellular network. Otherwise, you can't get to the internet. Then you need a remote ID service that is envisioned to be like Lance. So if you use Lance, you kind of have a sense that there are commercial providers of that.
Mm-hmm.
Most at the moment are giving that service away for free, I think, as a loss leader, hoping to gain market share in future things. Okay, that's great. But at some point, there is a cost to running the system,
right,
much more complex than Lance, right? Lance is just a message, an automatic message. There's no tracking, there's no telemetry, there's no performance requirement that related to latency, right? You can get your response from Lance within a few minutes or not. Remote ID has to be 1 second latency.
Right. So
talking about a much more complicated and secure system, I don't think that's trivially expensive. I think it's fairly costly.
Mm-hmm.
What it's going to cost, and ultimately, companies that provide it are going to have to pass along the cost to you, or to make up for that loss some other way, whether it's selling or sharing your data, or doing some kind of upsell on services. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, there's two ways to do it. It's debatable which one is preferable in different scenarios, and it leads to all kinds of industry arguments over whether this is better than that. But you don't need to resolve the debate if you FAA just provides the choice,
mm-hmm,
and network, and then let the market decide. Let's see how it works out. In more complex operations where network might be more functional in terms of beyond visual line of sight operation,
mm-hmm,
the people who provide the network service will tell you that that's necessary. Okay, so when we get to the point where there's rules for flying beyond visual line of sight, which is still, I think, a long way away, we can then make a shift. Those who are flying that way with the right kind of drone that provides detect and avoid capability should be on the network side of remote ID.
Right.
But for many applications today, I'm sure you know all of them, real estate, photography, and so on, broadcast is sufficient, and we know it works because we have had it out there for 2 years. So our suggestion is, because the proposal doesn't allow you to comply with remote ID just broadcast alone, there's a problem, right? We think that it should be an either or. So we've been emphasizing the benefits of broadcast because that's the method that FAA's proposal doesn't allow you to do on its own.
Right.
So encouragement is, if you agree, which you might not, maybe you're someone who only wants to do package delivery in the future, but if you're someone who's operating today, I would suggest commenting in favor of broadcast with sort of the notion that we're not asking FAA to pick one or the other. We want, ultimately, the comment is give us a choice between the two.
But don't require both.
It's also going to allow more types of drones to comply. We need a high rate of compliance for this to work and be successful for the industry. So the more vehicles that can be retrofit, the drone behind you can be connected to the internet, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff out there that's not designed to do that. What are you going to do? Throw it out? You're going to upgrade it, redesign it. You can't easily retrofit because the FAA says it has to tie into the flight control and shut down if it's not working properly. That's a whole other issue you might want to comment on. But it's not going to be easy for all the stuff out there to actually connect and do both things. So let's do either or.
Okay. Man, that is a wealth of information, Brendan, and I really appreciate you being on today, talking to us about that. I think our goal here is to motivate you guys out there to take action and get out and make a comment, because this affects everybody. It really does. If you're a drone, and we want our drone businesses to grow, and we want the popularity of drones to grow in a healthy manner, right? And so get out and have your voice heard, make comments, do some research. These are great points. If you don't do anything at all, just use these macro points that we've kind of talked about with broadcast and internet ID and legacy drones and cost and how it affects your business and privacy. We didn't talk a lot about that, but those kinds of things are really important. Now, I want to thank Brendan for being on our show today, and we hope that we'll get this out there on social media, let as many people see it as possible, and we'll talk to you soon. Brendan, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, just a reminder again, there's resources out there, particularly from the Alliance for Drone Innovation, as well as our own Viewpoints blog post that will point you in the right direction on all the things to think about, not just the network broadcast question, but I see there are a couple of other really good points that ADI has raised that I think we should all consider.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Brendan, for being with us again today. And let us know how can people reach you on social media, and or are there any locations people should know to go to?
Yes, my most frequent location for social media is Twitter, and my handle there is Drone Laws, plural, LAWS. And for as long as we're dealing with remote ID over the next few weeks, I'll be tweeting out stuff as I see that might be helpful to file in comments, including links to those resources I mentioned, such as the Alliance for Drone Innovation. Their website is droneinnovation.org, but they all are also on Twitter, and I will frequently retweet things they're doing. So there are lots of resources out there to not just cover the broadcast network specific point, but a lot of other ones that are probably important to you as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brendan. Thanks for coming on, and fly safe. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that was some great information, and I really want to thank Brendan for coming on to Droneapreneur and sharing his viewpoints and helping us as we need to all go to the NPRM comment section and give our viewpoints on this remote ID. It's a very important subject to all of us. And I want to thank you for joining Droneapreneur and our podcast today and just following us. We really would like your support. Adam and I are excited about bringing content like this and even additional content. We've got so many ideas on ways that we can help other entrepreneurs in the drone space, dronepreneurs. So please just subscribe below, hit that like button, keep following us, tell us what you want to hear, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. Those comments all help us. So fly safe, take care, and we'll see you soon. Take care.